It was a golden dawn in the lush countryside of Ganga Reserve, where the mist still clung to the meadows and the songs of bulbuls drifted lazily across the open plains. Farmer Hamid Khan had begun his usual routine, leading his horse, Rani, toward the stream for her morning drink. Rani was a beautiful mare, sleek chestnut coat, gentle eyes, and a white blaze that ran down her nose like a ribbon of moonlight. She was not just a work animal, but part of Hamid's family. The air was still cool, the sunlight faint, and the world seemed peaceful until a faint rustling in the tall elephant grass made the mare pause. The silence broke when a startled flock of egrets burst from the undergrowth, shrieking wildly. Hamid turned sharply toward the commotion, his heart skipping. Then, from the sea of grass, a shadow began to rise, thick, coiling, and glistening under the sunlight. For a moment, Hamid couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. It was a python massive beyond belief, at least 20 feet long, its muscular body rippling like a living rope of bronze and green. The snake's head lifted high, eyes glinting like cold glass, and its tongue flickered, tasting the air heavy with the scent of prey. Rani reared, whinnying in panic. Hamid's cry echoed through the fields. Ya Allah, AAJ Kiamuzi Bade Gai. He tried to pull her away, but before he could, the python struck. With terrifying speed, it lunged, jaws open, latching onto the mare's neck. Its coils followed in a deadly dance, looping, tightening, crushing. Hamid fell backward, horrified as his beloved horse kicked and screamed, her legs thrashing against the weight of the monstrous reptile. Dust flew, grass bent and broke, and the forest came alive with alarmed cries of birds and monkeys. Hamid scrambled to his feet and ran toward the nearest road, shouting for help. There was no time to think. He knew he could never fight such a beast alone. The nearest wildlife rescue unit was 10 kilometers away. Panting, barefoot, and terrified, he sprinted like a man possessed. His only thought was saving Rani. By the time he reached the dirt road, a small group of forest guards was already patrolling the area, led by Officer Musa Rahman, a seasoned ranger known for his calm under pressure. Hamid's frantic shout stopped them in their tracks. A giant snake. "It's killing my horse. Please hurry," he gasped, collapsing to his knees. Musa's expression hardened immediately. "Men, grab the capture poles and nets. Radio the rescue unit now." Within seconds, 2 jeeps roared to life, tires spitting dust as they sped toward the meadow. The serenity of morning had shattered, replaced by the growl of engines and the urgency of men racing against death. The team reached the clearing within minutes. What they saw froze them. Rani half submerged in mud, struggling weakly, her body wrapped in the massive coils of the python. The snake's scales shimmered with each constriction, muscles contracting in waves as it tried to suffocate its prey. Musa signaled for silence. "No sudden movements," he whispered. "We need to get close without startling it." The men nodded, eyes wide, hands trembling on their poles. The python was easily the largest they had ever encountered in this region. Perhaps an escaped specimen or one that had grown to monstrous size feeding on deer and wild boars near the swamp. Whatever its origin, it was a killing machine. Musa's radio crackled with the voice of the approaching rescue commander. "ETA 5 minutes. Hold position if possible." But Musa knew they didn't have 5 minutes. Rani's eyes were rolling back, foam forming at her mouth. Every second mattered now. Musa raised his hand and gave the signal. One of the guards, Bilal, picked up a long bamboo pole and banged it hard against a metal basin. The clang echoed like a gunshot across the field. Instantly, the python's head whipped toward the sound, tongue flicking, eyes narrow with fury. That split second of distraction was all Musa needed. He lunged forward with his capture stick, aiming for the neck. The pole hooked perfectly just behind the snake's jaw, and the team shouted as one. "Now!" For more men rushed in, looping ropes around the midsection of the giant reptile. The creature hissed, a sound so deep it felt like thunder rumbling through the ground. It coiled tighter in defense, dragging 2 men off their feet. Rani screamed again, hooves flailing. The air reeked of sweat, mud, and fear. "Keep pressure on its head." Musa yelled, muscles straining. The python's raw power was almost unbelievable. It twisted like an iron spring, throwing one man sideways into the water. Another fell backward. His boot caught in a root, nearly trampled by Rani's desperate kicks. Bilal leapt to grab the rope again, his hands burning as the coarse fiber tore his skin. "It's too strong," someone shouted. "Don't let go." Musa roared back. For nearly a full minute, the men fought the serpent, pushing, pulling, trying to loosen its grip. The python, angered and defensive, lashed out, striking the air with open jaws that glistened with saliva. A coil snapped free, slamming into Musa's shoulder with the force of a hammer. He grunted, pain shooting through his arm, but held firm. "We can't lose her," he shouted again, his voice hoarse with adrenaline. At that critical moment, the rescue truck finally arrived. A team of 3 additional officers jumped out carrying a metal hook, tranquilizer gun, and reinforced snake bag. The commander, Dr. Aisha Noor, the region's leading wildlife veterinarian, assessed the scene instantly. "The horse is in shock," she said sharply, "and that snake's too large to subdue by force alone. We need to sedate it now." She loaded a dart, aimed carefully, and fired. The tranquilizer hissed through the air and struck the python near its midsection. The snake recoiled, releasing a terrifying hiss that made every creature within earshot scatter. For a few moments, its movements grew even wilder, thrashing, tightening, striking blindly. "Everyone back. Give it space." Musa shouted, pulling his team clear. The next 90 seconds felt like an eternity. The python's strength began to fade gradually as the sedative took effect. Its coils loosened, and Rani's heaving chest was visible again. Mud and blood mingled beneath her body. "Move, and carefully." Dr. Aisha instructed. "Don't touch the head yet." They waited for final twitch to subside, then with painstaking caution, for men pried apart the last of the snake's coils. Musa held the capture pole steady, while Aisha checked the horse's pulse. "She's breathing, but shallow," she murmured. "Get water." Slowly. "Cool her down." Hamid, trembling, stepped forward and knelt beside his horse, whispering, "Rani, Mary John, stay with me." His voice broke, tears mixing with sweat and dirt. She flicked an ear weakly in response, a tiny spark of life that gave everyone hope. Behind them, the python lay stretched across the field like a fallen log, its sheer size dwarfing every man there. Even sedated, its presence commanded awe. "Get the transport crate," Aisha said. "We'll relocate it to the reserve edge once it's fully asleep." Musa exhaled, wiping his forehead, his uniform caked in mud. The first round was over, but far from done. They had saved Rani's life. Yes, but she was badly injured and the terrain was rough. The next challenge would be getting her out alive. The jungle was waking up again around them, the cries of peacocks and cicadas returning to the air. For the heroes of the Ganga rescue team, it was only the beginning of a long day that would test courage, compassion, and sheer endurance. The tension had eased, but not for long. The rescue team stood in the humid field, breathing heavily, the smell of mud and blood thick in the air. The giant python lay sedated, its muscular body stretched across several meters of flattened grass, while Rani, the exhausted mare, struggled to lift her head. Her breathing was shallow and labored, her chest heaving with every effort. Dr. Aisha knelt beside her, checking her pulse and examining the deep bruises circling her torso where the coils had constricted. "She's losing body heat fast," Aisha said urgently. "We have to move her to stable ground before she collapses completely." Musa nodded, glancing around at the terrain. The field was swampy, the mud soft and treacherous. Moving a half-ton animal from here would not be easy, but giving up wasn't an option. "Team, bring the stretcher." Musa ordered. 2 men ran back to the jeep and returned with a heavy canvas stretcher meant for wildlife transport. Normally, it was used for sedated leopards or deer, not a wounded horse of Rani's size. Still, they had to try. "We'll have to slide her gently onto it," Aisha said, her voice firm but calm. Hamid knelt beside her, holding his horse's head in his lap, whispering words of comfort in Urdu and Pashto, as though his voice alone could pull her back from the edge. "You've carried me through every storm. Rani, now it's my turn," he murmured. The mare's eyelids fluttered in response, and Aisha smiled faintly. She's still fighting. Let's not waste that. Musa signed positions. Bilal Yasser, hold her front. Ahmed, take the rear legs. We lift on my count. The men positioned themselves carefully, hands sinking into wet earth. 1, 2, 3, lift. The team strained, muscles quivering under the weight. Rani groaned softly, her body shuddering as they eased her onto the stretcher. The fabric sagged dangerously in the middle, but held. Good. Steady now, Musa said, voice low but commanding. They began the slow, careful march toward the dirt path, taking one uneven step at a time. Every jolt, every shift in balance sent a tremor through the mare's body, and Aisha walked alongside, holding a saline drip above her head, the tube taped to Rani's neck vein. Sweat dripped down everyone's faces as the morning sun climbed higher, turning the humid air into a suffocating blanket. Halfway to the road, trouble struck again. The ground ahead was too soft. Each step sank deeper into the mud. The stretcher tilted, nearly spilling its precious cargo. Stop. Don't move. Musa shouted, planting his feet. Bilal cursed under his breath. If we take another step, we'll lose balance. Aisha scanned the area quickly. We'll need a support board, something rigid under the stretcher. Hamid, desperate to help, sprinted back to the jeep, grabbed 2 wooden planks in the supply rack, and ran back, panting. The team slid the planks under the stretcher, forming a makeshift sled that should distribute the weight. Aisha said. Musa nodded. All right, slow and steady. Inch by inch, they dragged Rani toward higher ground. The sound of their grunts and the scrape of wood against mud filled the clearing. Above them, vultures circled lazily, drawn by the smell of blood. The sight only fueled their determination. No one would die here today, not if they could stop it. After nearly 20 grueling minutes, they reached the firm earth near the jeep. Set her down gently, Musa commanded. The men lowered the stretcher, their arms trembling from exhaustion. Rani lay motionless, her eyes half closed, foam dripping from her mouth. Aisha immediately moved to check her vitals again. Pulse weak but steady. We need to start 4 fluids properly and treat the wounds before moving her farther. She signaled to her assistant, Yasser, who began preparing antiseptic and gauze. Hamid crouched beside his horse, whispering prayers. She's a fighter, Aisha said softly, meeting his eyes. If she made it this far, she has a chance. Meanwhile, 2 guards worked to prepare the transport crate for the python. The massive reptile was still under sedation, but its breathing remained strong. We'll tag it for relocation once it's stable, Musa said to his team. Get a GPS tracker ready. We don't want this monster returning near the farms again. Bilal nodded, attaching a lightweight tracking tag to the snake's midsection. All right, he muttered. Let's get in the truck. Even with 5 men, rolling the serpent onto the tarp and into the transport crate was a back-breaking task. By the time they secured the latch, everyone was soaked in sweat. As the team prepared to leave, Musa surveyed the scene, the flattened grass, the muddy footprints, the faint shimmer of scales where the python had thrashed. This is nature, he murmured to Aisha, beautiful and brutal at the same time. She nodded, wiping her brow. And it's our job to keep the balance, Musa. Even monsters have their place. Her eyes softened as she glanced toward Rani. But compassion is what makes us human. Hamid looked up, his face streaked with tears but filled with gratitude. If she lives, it's because of all of you, he said quietly. Musa shook his head. No, Hamid, it's because you didn't give up. You called for help instead of running. That made the difference. The sun was blazing now, turning the muddy battlefield into a shimmer of gold and heat. The python, secured and silent, was being loaded onto the wildlife truck bound for the deep reserve. Rani, covered with light sheet, was being stabilized for transport to the veterinary station 5 kilometers away. As the engine started again, a quiet determination filled the air. The battle wasn't over yet, but for the first time since dawn, hope was stronger than fear. The rescue convoy rolled out of the clearing just as the sun reached its zenith, turning the air thick with heat and the road into a shimmering ribbon of dust. Officer Musa led the way in the front jeep, scanning the narrow dirt track that wound to the reserve's edge. Behind him, the veterinary truck carried Rani, the injured mare, lying on the reinforced stretcher that had been strapped carefully between two benches. Dr. Aisha sat beside her, eyes fixed on the monitor showing the horse's heart rate, while Yasser and Bilal worked to keep the four lines steady despite the constant jolts. Hamid rode in the back, his hands gently stroking Rani's mane, whispering prayers and soft words of reassurance every time she stirred. The Python's transport vehicle followed at a safe distance, its precious but dangerous cargo sealed inside a steel crate. The road was rough and narrow, carved through thick groves of teak and sal trees. Every bump made Rani's body twitch, and every sudden turn made Aisha's heart race. "Slow down, Musa," she called over the radio. "The vibrations are worsening her shock response." Musa's voice crackled back. "Copy that. Reducing speed. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. But 20 minutes in such terrain felt like an eternity. The jeep bounced and swayed, dust clouds filling the air. Insects swarmed around the vehicle, drawn to the scent of blood. Aisha dabbed Rani's wounds with antiseptic-soaked gauze, her gloved hands moving with clinical precision yet deep tenderness. "Stay with us, girl," she murmured. "You've survived worse." Suddenly, Rani shuddered violently, her breathing quickening into shallow gasps, her pulses dropping. Yasser said, eyes wide. The monitor beeped erratically. Aisha's training kicked in instantly. "Adrenaline now," she ordered. Bilal handed her the small syringe, and she injected the dose into the mare's neck. For a moment, everything seemed to hang still, the wheels crunching, the radio static, even the forest outside holding its breath. Then a faint but steady pulse reappeared. Hamid exhaled shakily, pressing his forehead against Rani's neck. "Thank you, Doctor, thank you," he whispered. Aisha didn't respond. She was already checking oxygen levels, her mind racing through every possible complication. Up ahead, the road curved dangerously close to a ravine where a small stream cut through the rocks. The bridge that spanned it was old, a wooden structure barely maintained since the last monsoon season. Musa stopped his jeep, climbed out, and inspected it. The boards creaked under his weight. "It'll hold one vehicle at a time," he said grimly. "The horse truck goes first, but slow." He signaled for the driver, Ahmed, to proceed carefully. The truck inched forward, the planks groaning ominously beneath the load. Everyone held their breath. A single cracked beam could send the entire vehicle into the shallow gorge below. "Keep it steady," Musa shouted. The wheels crossed the midpoint, and then the front tire hit a loose board. A loud crack echoed through the forest. The front of the truck lurched downward, the stretcher sliding slightly. "Hold her," Aisha cried, grabbing the forced stand and bracing her body against Rani's side. Bilal and Yasser clung to the metal frame, trying to steady the mare as the driver eased the vehicle forward. "Don't stop," Musa yelled. "Keep moving. Momentum will carry you through." Ahmed gritted his teeth, pressing lightly on the accelerator. The truck groaned, the bridge shuddered, but inch by inch, it reached the far side and rolled onto solid ground. A cheer erupted from the team, half relief, half disbelief. Musa slapped the hood of the truck. "Good work, everyone." No one relaxed yet. "We're not done." They continued along the winding road, the trees thinning as the outskirts of the veterinary station came into view. The compound stood surrounded by open fields and small paddocks, a beacon of safety amid wilderness. As the gate swung open, a team of veterinary assistants rushed out with stretchers and medical gear. "Bring her straight to Bay 3, one of them shouted. The vehicle screeched to a halt, and the rescue team leapt into action again. Within seconds, Rani was carefully lifted out, the saline bag held high, the air filled with the smell of disinfectant and hay. Hamid followed closely, his face etched with fear and hope. Inside the clinic, the air was cool and dim. Fans whirred overhead, and the sound of clattering tools echoed as the medical team surrounded the injured horse. Aisha took command. "We need warm fluids, oxygen support, and sedation before surgery. Internal bruising likely. Get the ultrasound ready." She moved with confidence born of experience. Musa and his men stood outside the glass window, silent, their uniforms streaked with mud and sweat. For the first time since dawn, they allowed themselves to breathe deeply. Bilal leaned against the wall, exhausted. "I swear, sir," he muttered, "that was the biggest python I've ever seen. Looked like something out of a nightmare." Musa gave a tired smile. "Nightmares can be real, Bilal, but so can courage." Hamid watched through the glass, whispering under his breath, "Please, God, just let her live." The vets worked swiftly, cleaning wounds, inserting 4 lines, checking vital signs. Rani twitched once, then settled, the sedatives taking effect. The monitor beeped steadily again, a rhythm that brought tears to Hamid's eyes. Outside, the evening breeze began to cool the earth. The sun dipped low behind the trees, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The day that had begun with terror was ending in fragile hope. Yet Musa knew this was only one victory in a long battle. For Rani's survival, for the balance of nature, and for the unseen heroes who risked their lives to protect both.